Hello, 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 and welcome to our nursing news you can use. We are here live a little after 5, but we're here live at 5 every week to give you what's happening in nursing news. I'm just pulling some things up together today. It's been a very busy day, and I'm pretty sure you've had a busy day as well. Welcome to those of you that are on our Nurse Shark Academy page and our Facebook page, and those that are on our YouTube channel for the Nurse Shark Academy, and those that are on our Baxter Professional Services page. We want to thank you for tuning in each week. And I like to start off every week with an inspirational quote or some sort of um, inspirational thought. And so this month, those of you who've been following me know that I have been following the 31-day wisdom challenge. And so those of you that are on my social media know I've been watching that and participating in that. And so I thought that I would, for today, is give you some wisdom out of the book of Proverbs because I found this very interesting. And he says, Proverbs chapter 3, verses 13. This is from um, the New King James. Yes, New King James. It says, happy is the man who finds wisdom and the man who gains understanding. For her proceeds are better than the profits of silver, and her gain than fine gold. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things you may desire cannot compare with her. And I just love that wisdom is priceless. It's more precious than rubies and gold and silver. That you need to find wisdom in your life. And so I'm encouraging you to do that very thing, is to seek out more wisdom in your life. So I'm very glad to share that with you. That's from Proverbs chapter 3, verse 13, 14, and 15. And so that's our inspirational quotes for today. All right, let's go ahead and get into the news because there's a lot of news to cover and I want to be able to share it with you. So this first article came up and it highlights the plight of nurses everywhere. But this in particular talks about nurses and who come here on work visas and things like that. And this is why I bring these stories out. And so we've talked about this before, but this just came out very recently. And a nurse is saying, I feel like a criminal for quitting nurses in the U.S. fight to stay or pay agreements. So Filipino nurses are calling for the U.S. top labor watchdog to review controversial stay or pay training repayment agreements that have left them facing lawsuits and thousands of dollars in fees after they quit their jobs. So let's get into it. So what's happening, and this is happening in other industrialized nations as well, is that we are importing nurses from other countries to come work here because of the nursing shortage, right? Basically, people just don't want to work in terrible conditions. And so we're bringing these nurses over here with the idea that, if you stay on, you can, if you stay on at the facility, then you can stay here in the US. And if you leave, now you have to pay us back all that money. So this is what's happening. So it says training repayment agreement provisions, or TRAP, as they're called, are contracts employers require workers to sign before beginning the job and stipulate that if a worker leaves the job before a specified time, they owe substantial fees. Nurses who work for the Ohio-based CommuCare family of companies, one of the largest providers of post-acute care in the U.S., say they have been subjected to buyout fees of thousands of dollars when they resign and have been sued by their former employer. So Jadalyn Ramos, a 30-year-old from the Philippines, worked for 4 months at a CommuCare-owned short-term and senior rehab facility in Pittsburgh in 2022 and paid $15,545.45 in fees when she quit her job. After paying the fee, Ramos was then sued for $100,000 or more by CommuCare for quitting her job before the 3 years required by her employment agreement. Ramos explained that when she started working, the high number of patients she was tasked to take care of every day posed significant safety issues and risks to her medical license. And so this is the problem. They hire these nurses in, they don't provide adequate staffing, and then they say, oh, if you quit and leave us, then you now will owe us back money. Oh, and then we'll go ahead and sue you. She says, I was assigned to take care of at least 30 patients every shift. It was really exhausting. I was burnt out. I worked nonstop. I chose not to use my 30-minute break so I could finish my tasks for that shift. She said her inquiries to the company about why the suit was filed was ignored, leading her to file a countersuit 2 months later. Ramus said the situation is an eye-opener for me. While working with lawyers to fight for my rights, I started to learn that repayment agreements are not normal. Quitting a job that you're not comfortable with anymore is not a sin. And that's part of the problem. They guilt nurses into staying, say, oh, you're going to leave your colleagues, understaffed, et cetera, and yet they're expecting them to pay back these exorbitant fees, and they put them in essentially what's called a trap. And we've talked about this before. And so nurses then, Ramus and other former community care nurses filed unfair labor practices charges with the National Labor Relations Board for the agency to review their training repayment agreement provisions with Communicare. Jeff Abruzzo, the general counsel for the NLRB, has identified traps as an instance of non-compete agreements that violate the National Labor Relations Act, quote, in limited circumstances. The NLRB issued a complaint against another employer earlier this year over their use of the provisions. And so, again, nurses, if you're coming in, you need to make sure that you have someone who is an attorney who has legal means to review these contracts before you sign them, because you don't know what you're signing up for. And these non-compete clauses are pretty egregious, and they're trying to hold you captive to that. And so you need to make sure that you know what you're signing up for when you do this. Several advocacy groups, including Towards Justice and the American Economic Liberties Project, have been pressuring the Biden administration to ban or stay or pay employment contract agreements. The Federal Trade Commission has proposed a ban of non-compete agreements and noted in the proposal that many training repayment agreement provisions are non-competes. And so basically they'll train you, but they don't want you to go working for someone else. And they're trying to hold you hostage. And remember, we talked about this case of a physician here in Indiana that was suing a hospital because a countersuing the hospital because they basically said, well, you know, even though you've worked here for almost 30 years, we want to change how you practice. And if you leave us, then, you know, you're in breach of this non-compete clause. I think he's more than served that hospital. And I don't think there should be a non-compete in that place. But anyway, so these are some of the issues that we're facing. We've talked about this before. And the problem is that when you're getting into these places and you're signing these agreements, there's nothing in there in the agreement that says that they can't fire you during this time. So you essentially, speaking in Indiana, we're an at-will state. So if they can fire you at will, then you should be able to leave at will. And that is what it says. And so we need to make sure that we're having them look at these agreements. So it says some 8.9% of registered nurses in the U.S. are Asian Americans. Thousands of nurses from abroad work in the U.S. every year on visas, the majority from the Philippines, due to training programs that mirror training for nurses in the U.S. The lawsuits filed against the 5 nurses and their countersuits against Communicare are still pending in court. So we don't know what's going to happen coming, but there are other people out here contesting this as well. They should. And so I am going to let you look up that article if you want to read more. That's from The Guardian. Okay. Here's another article that I found this week. And this comes to a question that's come up more frequently and more recently. And here's the issue. And this is something we probably need to talk about in healthcare. We have an elderly gentleman who certainly requires care and needs to get the care that he requires. The problem is that this person has been suspected of murder and is now in a nursing facility. And so what does that do to protect then the staff and the other residents, not knowing all about what's happening with this particular individual and his charges and what's happening? So this brings up those safety questions and safety concerns. It's something for us to think about and talk about in healthcare. So this is coming out of Vermont, and it says an 81-year-old Vermont murder suspect to remain at nursing facility. A Vermont judge says a man accused in the 1989 murder of his in-laws can remain at a skilled nursing facility for now. After remaining a cold case for decades, Michael Lewis, 81, was arrested last October for the stabbing deaths of George and Catherine Peacock in Danby. But with his health declining, he was transferred in July from prison to a skilled nursing facility. A Rutland County judge on Wednesday said Lewis can remain at the rehab facility at Mount Ascutney Hospital in Windsor. Lewis, who cannot walk and can only stand up for a short period, has been under 24/7 monitoring by the Department of Corrections. He will now be monitored by an ankle bracelet. So I understand that they are monitoring because not everyone, he is still under arrest, so he would have to be monitored. But what happens if you served your time in prison, you've had past histories of criminal acts, and you're put in a situation of a congregational setting and no one's monitoring you? Those are questions that come up. This is an 81-year-old man that cannot walk, and this is a crime that happened years ago, so there's no indication he would commit another crime or that he was capable of doing it. But then my question becomes, what happens when you're too sick to remain in prison? What do we do to maintain the safety of the other residents? And so that's some of the safety concerns that I have, and I think that's a valid concern that we need to talk about. So this is coming out of the state of New York, and we've been visiting a lot of things in New York recently. And it says advocates urge New York to prioritize nursing home staffing crisis in 2024. So advocates say nursing homes are still in crisis with their patients. Now the state legislature is in their session. There's concerns because a family member says that their loved one didn't get fed and he needs to be fed 3 times a day. He needs to move around, and accuse them of basically starving their loved one. They're saying that legislative change emerged from the advocacy of this particular person, and there's a priority for the governor and the legislature in 2024. According to reports, it says a very focused recruitment and education campaign to the next generation of what care means, what care looks like, what aging looks like, because they're the most vulnerable New Yorkers, and we lost them during COVID. It goes on to say that the shortages of CNAs, LPNs, and RNs in nursing homes is directly impacting access to care at facilities, closed units, limit admissions, causing significant backups in hospitals, and the inability of those in the community to receive necessary care. And so these are some of the issues that are coming out. So there's new bills that are coming through. So we'll see what happens. But just to let you know, that is something on their radar in New York. Okay. Let's talk about this one. Let's shift a little bit, because let's talk about some nursing students, because this came up, and I just happened to see this today. And another College of Nursing is under scrutiny. So it says complaints about Galen College spread well beyond Gainesville. It says concerns have not gone away among students at Galen College of Nursing over fears that they are being scammed. In fact, they have only increased. This is by reporting from WCJB. It says, since our last story on Galen, TV20 has received dozens of emails and phone calls from students and parents all over the country expressing concerns about Galen. They range from inconsistent cost of tuition, unqualified teachers, and a lack of transparency. Abriana Yeomans says, I really got nothing out of it. She says her classes are currently on hold until April because she was dismissed from the school without warning. She says, I never received that type of information that if you miss too many classes, you're dismissed. It was never discussed. So the dean was just breaking it down to me that I have to do readmission. I have to pay my fees all over again just in case my background changes within the 3 months. Kaylin Smith, who attends Galen's campus in San Antonio, Texas, also reached out to us, as did students in Houston, Pembroke, Pines, and West Palm Beach. Smith says everybody that goes through the program, they've at least at one point had to repeat something. Smith says grades are manipulated to keep students paying high prices, and that students are often charged to take classes again. She goes on to say multiple students were failing miserably. There wasn't going to be enough seats, there wasn't going to be enough clinical sites, there wasn't going to be enough instructors to readmit all these students. My mom did not pass. She has to repay the balance from the quarter before and pay for the next quarter. And she also says her last quarter cost of $6,000, and now the prices have gone up. She says she was also forced to take a semester off because she could not get the COVID-19 vaccine after having a baby. She says they booted me from the entire quarter. When I met with the administration, finally, it was too late. I was already being dropped. The assistant director told me my pharmacology class would be reinstated. I get back, he's no longer there. She says she was forced to go through the readmission process and pay admission fees over again, then forced to retake a class that she had already taken. She says it's outrageous because it's a sacrifice. I did this because I was now a single parent with 2 kids and I need to make more money. What should have taken 18 months, they have completely derailed. Galen is accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and School Commission on Colleges. A worker there said he has, quote, received no complaints about any aspects of Galen. A representative of Galen provided the statement. Galen College of Nursing has been educating nurses for more than 30 years with over 36,000 graduates and licensure pass rates above the national average. Our faculty meet requirements by the Board of Nursing and our regional programmatic accrediting bodies, and we're proud of the quality education they provide daily. We apply rigorous evaluation to all educational delivery, along with robust student support, and offer channels for our students to seek assistance and provide feedback, always with the future of our students in mind. We value our important role in expanding access to nursing education and contributing to the future nursing workforce. So that is their response. So my question then becomes, has anybody looked at their financials? Because often that is where you'll find where the problem is. I don't know anything about this institution other than what I just read to you. I don't know anything else. But those are the questions I would have. 1, look at the financials. 2, is this a for-profit institution or a nonprofit institution? That may also shed some light onto some things. Number 3, is there something in your state that says if you don't pass, or are there certain regulations that allow you to retake your classes without having to redo all your semesters? And secondly, she was taking a pharmacology class. She don't need to have her vaccine for that. She's going to class with other students, so she was kind of totally fine, right? And there should have been an exemption. So that's kind of confusing to me right there. So those are some of those questions that I have. And so maybe those of you that are attending this college, or maybe you can shed some light on it. Shed some light on it. Let me know what's going on. Okay, this came from the Indiana Business Journal, and it says Indiana among states urging feds to reconsider nursing home staffing requirements. At the Prairie View Skilled Nursing Home in Sanborn, Iowa, the cafeteria was noisy on a recent Thursday, but not far from the sounds of conversation among dozens of residents is a unit that sits quiet and empty. Wendy Nelson, Prairie View's administrator, used a code on a keypad to enter what used to be Prairie View's memory care unit. A corkboard in the eating area still displayed the date, February 22nd, that the unit closed in 2022. They closed it because they couldn't find enough staff, Nelson, who's managed the facility for nearly 2 decades, said. She says, we were kind of in a situation where we had 8 residents out of 16. You have to have a nurse for the whole 24 hours. You have to have at least 1 to 2 aides for the whole 24 hours. Staffing is a chronic issue at Prairie View, and Nelson said it's only gotten worse since the pandemic when many staff members burnt out. Many nursing homes like Prairie View across the country, including those in Indiana, are facing critical staffing shortages, which can lead to dangerous conditions for residents and force facilities to limit the number of residents it can take. This fall, the Biden administration unveiled a controversial proposal that would create a staffing requirement, which has faced significant pushback from the nursing home industry. So this is something that kind of goes on, um, and I just wanted to share some additional information. Okay, and so here, okay, so the American Healthcare Association estimates facilities nationwide will need to hire 1,002 and 104 uh, additional full-time workers under the mandate. That's 8,077 nurse aides and 22,077 registered nurses. Again, as we found out a few months ago, that doesn't include LPNs in their staffing ratio, which I find that very, very strange. So we'll see what happens with this legislation as it goes forward and what the regulations and when they're actually going to put them in place. Which brings us this, which I find interesting. This is from the Lawrence Times, and this is a letter from a CNA to the Times in Kansas. And so it says a CNA's plea for increased staffing standards in Kansas nursing homes. So let's take a look at it. She says, starting my journey as a certified nurse's aide at age 15, I was brimming with hope and had an earnest eagerness to make a difference, oblivious to the challenges and intricacies that lay ahead in this profession. I find myself at the heart of an agonizing dilemma. My name is Addison Stover. I'm a 20-year-old biochemistry student at the University of Kansas on the pre-medical track, and I carry the weighty title of a CNA working within the walls of nursing homes. Today, I share my ardent plea, the desperate call to increase staffing standards in Kansas nursing homes. On September 1st, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services released a proposed rule to increase staffing levels of both registered nurses and CNAs in long-term care facilities, including nursing homes. The onset of COVID-19 pandemic has mercilessly laid bare the vulnerabilities of our healthcare system. The chronic shortage of staff has transformed our noble profession into a high-stakes gamble where the odds are stacked against us, and the stakes are the well-being of Kansas nursing home residents. The burden on healthcare workers, especially those like me working in nursing homes, has reached an unprecedented level of stress. I want to continue my work as a CNA. It is not a career for the faint of heart, but it is coming down to the point where I wonder, if not me, then who? It's not just a rhetorical question, it's a plea for attention to an issue that affects us all. The scarcity of staff has compelled facilities to deploy CNAs with minimal training and experience into situations where the safety net of an experienced colleague or nurse is glaringly absent. They are doomed to fail. That failure manifests itself. It manifests into resident falls, medication oversights, the development of bed sores, and lapses in providing essential services like showers and bathroom trips. She goes on to say, and I'm going to skip because I cannot read this all. She says, as a CNA, my commitment to caring for older adults runs deep. The connections I form with your loved one is invaluable. However, the shortage of staffing has forced us into a precarious balancing act between our genuine desire to provide compassionate care and the harsh reality of being stretched thin. She goes on to say, increasing staffing standards is not just a matter of ensuring job satisfaction for healthcare workers. It is a plea for the preservation of the dignity and quality of life for nursing home residents. It is a plea for recognizing the vital role that CNAs play and provide them with the support they need to carry out their responsibilities effectively. Pay us well, give us health insurance, provide us opportunities to grow, recognize our blood, sweat, and tears. Staff nursing homes appropriately. So she says more in the letter. I encourage you to read that, but it's a very poignant plea for increasing the staff at nursing homes. And I agree, we need more staff. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's move into our next story. We've got another strike. This is a Peace Health home care nurses in Springfield authorized option to strike. Home care and hospice nurses at Peace Health Sacred Heart Medical Center Riverbend announced Friday that they've authorized a strike, but said they're waiting for the hospital's response before moving ahead. At a press conference in Springfield, Oregon, the home care nurses called on Peace Health to offer them the same wages as in hospital nurses at Riverbend, arguing the jobs have comparable responsibilities. Hospice nurse Paulette Farrell says all we're asking is equal pay for equal work so that we can continue to do our jobs and care for our community the way you all deserve to be cared for. According to the Oregon Nurses Association spokesperson Myrna Jensen, previous contracts with Peace Health had parity between the nursing types. But she said hospital leadership has proposed lowering increases for home and hospice care moving forward. As a result, the parties have been unable to come to an agreement to replace their previous contract, which expired in April. Meanwhile, Jensen said the current wages are already pushing workers away. Hospice nurse Heather Herbert said with less staff, she's having to juggle more patients and she can no longer clear her schedule in an emergency situation. She says, I work with dying children. Can you imagine telling the parents of a dying child that you have to leave early because Peace Health is having a staffing crisis? Before deciding to move forward, the nurses plan to meet with the hospital administration on January 5th, so in a couple days. Hospice nurse Joe Turner said the workers aren't taking the decision lightly. She says, deep in our hearts, we know that our patients come first. But if Peace Health leaves us no other option than to strike, then that's something we must do. So, again, we'll see what happens and follow that particular strike. And what do you guys think? Because, it's having worked in hospice and home care before, it's difficult because, yeah, you may have 8 patients to see a day, but what they're forgetting is the travel time, it's the wear and tear, it's the going in and out of the homes, it's the safety and risk factor, and all the things that you have to worry about when you're out in the field that you may not have to worry about when you're at the bedside in the hospital because you have staff readily available to assist you. So I think these nurses deserve their pay, and hopefully they will get their contract. Okay. This is a feel good story that I've seen across the news feeds. So I wanted to share it with you. It says one wound, 3 nurses, Stevenson triplets graduate nursing school together. So this is a story about 3 nursing students who all graduated. They were siblings and they were triplets. So nursing is truly a family affair for the Stevenson sisters. In fact, triplets Jean, Janet, and Janice all recently graduated together from the nursing program at South University. The sisters are a triple threat in healthcare, and according to the triplets' interview with WSFA, the shared career path was inspired by their mother, who sparked her daughter's interest in the field during her time as a nurse. So, shout outs to mom. Shout outs to mom, right? As Jeanette shared, I wanted to do ICU, Jean wanted to do pediatrics or NICU, and Janice wants to do ER. So Jean, Jeanette, and Janice graduated from South University on December the 7th with a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, according to the Instagram post by the sisters. They said, we are excited to embark on a fulfilling career, making a difference in people's lives, ready to carry the lessons learned and the compassion cultivated in our nursing career. Throughout their studies, the triplets developed motivational study habits through their unique bond. If one person doesn't know something, you can go to the other, and maybe they'll explain it a little better. Janice said. Her sister Jean added, we motivate each other, we help each other, make sure everyone is passing and learning at the same pace. So I want to say congratulations to those 3 new nurses and welcome to the tribe. And yeah, I'm excited to see that. And I think that's wonderful. And again, it's that influence from mom. So again, shout out to mom. All right. Here is our next story. And this is a nurse making a difference, or nurses, I should say, making a difference. And I wanted to share this, even though this is not the US, this is across the pond. This is from Nursing Times. These are nurses that were honored by King Charles. But what I find quite interesting and what I applaud is some of the work that they do. And so I am just going to briefly, really quick, so you could just see this woman's just smiling face. Her face is just gorgeous. Um, so you can see her face. It's just look at her smile. It's just wonderful. So it says a former Royal College of Nursing (RCN) president, a female genital mutilation specialist. I didn't even know that was a specialty, and that's why I'm bringing that because I didn't even know that was a specialty. And more than 24 other nurses and midwives have been recognized in the 2024 New Year Honors List. The list, released annually at the end of December by the UK Cabinet Office, names those who have been given a prestigious award from the King. Among the awardees this year were Dr. Denise Schaefer, who served as the RCN's president from July 2021 until January 2023. Dr. Schaefer, who was awarded a Commander of the Order of the British Empire, or CBE, in the list, is currently the Director of Safety and Learning for the NHS Resolution. Lorraine Sundoza, Interim Chief Executive at East London NHS Foundation Trust, and the Trust's former chief nurse was awarded an Order of the British Empire and OBE for services to mental and community health. Woohoo! Psych nurses, there you go. Ms. Mendoza, who works at the East London Trust since 2002 and is a registered mental health nurse, says she's overjoyed to be named. Going on, East London Trust Chair Eileen Taylor added, I'm delighted at this well-deserved recognition for Lorraine's contribution over many years of service to the NHS and nursing. Then Huda Muhammad, FGM specialist, lead midwife at Whittington Health NHS Trust, was awarded the Member of the Order of the British Empire and an MBE for services to midwifery. Ms. Muhammad, who is both a registered nurse and a midwife, runs an FGM clinic which takes on patients from across the country. As reported by Nursing Times, Ms. Muhammad is backing the One Question campaign, which asked the NHS, they had a question about FGM, or female genital mutilation, to all female patient forms and to offer long-term mental health support and reconstructive surgery to survivors of it. So I just want to say there's many more nurses here, and they've all been doing wonderful things, and they all deserve their praise and accolades. But I just wanted to share that as our nurse making a difference. And that was a specialty that I have never heard of. And lastly, coming back home to the U.S., it is with sadness and gratitude that we highlight this nurse making a difference, Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. Eddie Bernice Johnson was the first registered nurse elected to Congress, and she's been remembered as a trailblazer. Former U.S. Representative Eddie Bernice Johnson leaves more than a legacy of a smashed glass ceiling. Johnson, the first registered nurse ever elected to Congress, died Sunday at the age of 88. She claimed a number of firsts in her remarkable life. She was also the first Black woman to chair the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. In that role, she played a critical role in the passage of the CHIPS and Science Act. Vice President Kamala Harris said in a tribute of Johnson, "The measure invests billions in science and technology, and Johnson pushed for provisions to support historically Black colleges and universities." Harris praised her as a visionary, pioneer, and a fighter. U.S. Representative Jasmine Crockett, a Texas Democrat, said Johnson's work on that legislation signed by President Biden in 2022 will be part of her lasting legacy. Crockett said in a statement that she liked to call Johnson a quiet storm. While most people only know about the historic number of jobs that are being created throughout the country as a result of this law, many won't know that Chairwoman Johnson required this bill to also have investments for STEM and research at historically black colleges and universities. For decades to come, her work will live on. Johnson spent 30 years in Congress before leaving the House in January 2023. Jackson's experience in nursing and Johnson's experience in nursing and the discrimination she encountered fueled much of her fight for equality and social justice. There's a typo in this article. Due to segregation in Texas, Johnson entered a nursing program at St. Mary's College at the University of Notre Dame in Indiana, where she received a nursing certificate in 1955. She was hired as a nurse at Dallas VA Hospital, and staff were shocked to see she was black when she arrived to start her job. She said other workers would enter rooms ahead of her to assure patients that she was a qualified nurse. Johnson called it the most blatant, overt racism that I ever experienced in my life. Eventually, she became the first black female chief psychiatric nurse at the Dallas VA Hospital. Johnson became the first black woman elected to any office in Dallas and the first black resident of Dallas elected to Congress when she won a House seat in 1993. Representative Terry A. Sewell, a Democrat from Alabama, said in a post on X that she was heartbroken over the loss of Johnson, whom she described as a mentor. She was a giant among giants, Sewell said. May her legacy continue to live on through her impactful work and the lives she touched. There are so many accolades here. There are 3 days of memorial services were slated to begin Monday and concluding with graveside services Wednesday, which is today. So I wanted to say thank you to Eddie Bernice Johnson for all that you've done. And thank you for your service to our country in Congress. And you are definitely a nurse making a difference. All right, so that ends all of our news stories for today. I want to leave you with one final thought, and I just thought I'd just share this with you. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to the stage. I specialize in working with nurses and other health professionals who want to reduce. My mission is for you to own your seat at the table of nurse entrepreneurship, gaining confidence, skills, and freedom to live your life on your own terms. I specialize in working with nurses and other health professionals who want to reduce burnout, pessimism, and compassion fatigue, so you can become a successful entrepreneur to reclaim the love you have for your profession and to create a fulfilling and prosperous life. Join the Nurse Shark Academy at thenurssharkacademy.biz and come feel the sun, providing a clear path for business success. All right, and that's our new promo for the Nurse Shark Academy. So I just wanted to share that with you. You are the first to see it. That's a new promotion coming up. And so what I wanted to say is that those of you who missed our challenge that we just had, our Kickstart 2024 challenge, don't worry, because there will be an opportunity for you to get access to those videos. They are right now in our Nurse Shark Academy challenge group. So until the end of the week, but after that, they'll be coming down and they'll be available for purchase on our website, on the nurssharkacademy.biz. But because of wanting to do so much for nursing, we are going to extend and hold again our Jump Start program for nurses, our workshop to get you started in your nurse business. And so I wanted to share that with you and let you be the first to know that will be coming up. So be on the lookout for that. I'll be posting that in both of our pages, and you'll see that coming up. All right, so that's all that I have for you. Thank you, and bye-bye for now.